So why the hood is always near downtown? Coming right up. What's up, y'all? Welcome back to Conversations with Reza. And as always, I want to say thank y'all for joining me today. So as y'all know, I am not a fan of Dr. Umar Johnson, not in the slightest. Now, one thing you know is about him is he has a very narcissistic trait of not the inability to say, I don't know. I don't think I've ever heard Dr. Umar Johnson say, hey, I don't know. But one thing about honest people, if you ask them a question and they don't know, they're going to say they don't know. But narcissists, if you ask them a question and they don't know, they're just going to talk and talk and talk. Something that Dr. Umar Johnson repeatedly does, and even in topics when he's asked about, he's speaking on that you know about and you know he's wrong, but he'll just talk and talk and talk and be wrong. And this is why he's often looking like a fool, because he does this. Now, he did an interview with the show called Ari Not Sorry podcast. In that show, that interview was actually broken down into several different shorts, and a lot of those shorts come to me. Now, one particular short, he basically talked about, or he was asked why the hood is always near downtown.
The ghetto is never far from downtown.
It ain't, I was about to say that.
Yeah.
No, Umar, I was just wondering why that always is.
Yeah.
It's too close to downtown.
Yeah.
I always wonder how that happened.
Because you need the cheap labor.
Yeah.
Wherever you have capitalism, you have poor people.
Right.
You can't have capitalism without poor people. Whenever you see a billionaire, you know that there's some extremely broke people somewhere in the world making the little trinkets they need in order for this billionaire empire to last. Right now, you have several corporations under fire because they got child slaves in the Congo mining the minerals that they need.
Cobalt and all
Absolutely. Tesla is one of them, right?
Yeah.
So as Elon Musk runs around acting like he's leader of the free world,
Right.
your cars are partly being produced by child labor, exploitation.
Same
You
thing
see
with
what I'm saying?
Apple cell phones and everything.
Absolutely. You see what I'm saying? So, and the Apple cell phone, another big one with the Congo.
Yeah.
So there is, capitalism requires poverty.
Now, I will say that cheap labor could possibly have played its part because black folk, historically would work at a lesser price than white folks in order to get business, and other white folks who would get just as good a service would patronize them, especially during slavery time when it came down to fur-hide slavery. But he's wrong here. I mean, black people didn't move in these hoods or these areas for cheap labor. They moved there because they were migrating for better opportunities. I mean, black people have always migrated for opportunities in the 20th century, especially in the early 20th century. You have black folks that have migrated north, and blacks who have migrated to the west because there was just simply better opportunity and less racism against them. So, black people migrating to these areas because it was better opportunity. Now, the thing is that these areas that they're talking about weren't always hoods, as we know of them. These were decent, nice areas where black people lived and raised families and so on and so forth. So these weren't always hoods. They didn't become hoods until after the destruction of the black family, and that's when these areas started to downgrade, in which black females were starting to pick, follow behind, wanted to be sexually liberated, and they wanted to do what they wanted to do, and they started sleeping with the men they wanted instead of the men that society would direct them toward. Then they would start wanting to sleep with the Pookie Ray Rays, and they got the Pookie Ray Ray result, which means that you had more women started to have children out of wedlock, and it started to be dependent upon government, and it just decreased to what we see today. So that's what created the hoods. But these places weren't always the hood. Now, as far as him saying that capitalism requires poverty, again, that's nonsense too. Capitalism it doesn't require poor people. Capitalism requires basically capital and resources. That's pretty much what capitalism is. And they'll get those that capital and resources wherever they can, as effectively and efficiently as they can. Now, if politicians pass laws making it difficult for capitalists to get the capital and resources, well, capitalists are going to react and adjust. So basically taking all the manufacturing jobs out of America and shipping them overseas to third world countries was a reaction by capitalists because of laws passed by politicians. So capitalism is not about poverty. Again, we had capitalism in America when we were the ones manufacturing, and basically this country was built off of those manufacturing jobs that paid employees a nice salary, men more than enough to be able to take care of family. Well, there was no poverty associated with that. Again, he talks about the child labor in Congo. Well, capitalists didn't put a gun to anybody's head and to force their children to go out and work. But capitalism is just looking for resources. That's where the resources are. And these racists oftentimes, blame the white man for quote unquote exploiting Africa. But if you listen to people from Africa, they will say the problem isn't the white man, the problem is the corrupt governments. The corrupt governments gets in the way. So the issue, like I say, capitalism, contrary to what Dr. Umar Johnson says, capitalism actually needs people with means, because people with means consume, and capitalists need consume. Well, poor people ain't consuming like talking about it, not as much as people with means were. So capitalism does not need poverty, and there's no evidence that capitalism need poor people. Capitalism need productivity, and it need resources. Again, this is another example of Dr. Umar Johnson speaking on something and just talking, doesn't know what the hell he's talking about, and saying things instead of just saying, hey, I don't know, I'm not going to speak on that subject, because that's not what narcissists do. And again, he has a lot of narcissist traits. But anyway, like I said, I'll do more breakdowns to those shorts, because I've seen several of the shorts that were up there basically in my timeline, or that was presented to me by YouTube, and Dr. Umar Johnson, my God, says a lot of nonsense. Anyway, y'all, as always, until next time.